Welcome to another episode of Personal Finance Friday, and today we're talking about joint finances for married couples. Stay with us, we'll be right back. And we're back. Again, we're talking about joint finances for married couples. Now, everybody knows that the primary cause of divorce in the United States is arguments about money. But why do they argue about money? Well, different people manage their money in different ways, and when you get a couple together, those ways are often in conflict. They have to get together and talk about how they're going to do it together, and that may be vastly different from the way the individuals handled it separately. Different personalities have different feelings about the power and control dynamics. Sometimes the higher income earner wants to control things. Sometimes the individual that's the person in charge of family finances, whether that's the higher income earner or not, is trying to control things to such a degree that it becomes onerous on the other. The biggest problem, however, with the joint account and joint finances thing is when one spouse has to come to the other constantly for money for different kinds of things. It's very much an Oliver Twist kind of setup where it's a "please sir, may I have some more" when they're asking for money. Now, of course, if the budget is tight, if they're both low income earners, for example, or if they're piles of student debts and other debts and things like that that have to be cleared, and money's very, very tight and has to be tightly controlled, then this situation is unavoidable. That's tension you're just going to have to work through. But if things are fairly calm, I mean, there may still be debts, but they're not, overriding concerns or anything like that. Having one spouse have to come to another on a regular basis and ask for money for, hey, I'm going to lunch with some friends from the office, or I want to buy a video game or a book or something like that. For all these discretionary expenses, constantly going to that other spouse and asking for money is infantilizing, and it breeds resentment, and that's got to stop. But how? Well, let's take a look at a recommended solution, a possible solution for how to manage your cash flow as a married couple. Now, what you're looking at here are your typical married couple, both with an income. Doesn't matter which one is the higher income earner, of course, for this example. But in the typical scenario, what's happening with the vision for joint finances when people are looking at getting married or just recently married is that everything piles into an hours account. Checking, savings, that kind of thing. All the money's in one great big pile. Now, this is true initially, for that's where the paychecks are going to go. But remember, you're all in this together. You've gotten married, you've combined your family or become a family, and all this income, whoever's making more or less or not, it's all your income together. If you don't believe me, ask any divorce lawyer. They'll tell you. It doesn't matter who makes more, it's all both of yours. So, this is what the normal situation looks like. But what I'm proposing is look at a situation where once the money is in that account, then a small amount of allowance goes to each individual spouse, and this allowance is an equal amount. No matter who earns more, they both get the same thing. That allowance then gets sent out to a separate account. Now, whether it's a different bank or not is immaterial. It could be a separate account at the same bank or a separate account at a totally different bank. But it creates a situation that's a yours, a mine, and ours. And in these separate accounts, these yours and mines, is where this discretionary allowance amount of money goes. Now, again, this is a relatively small amount. It'll vary by budget and how much your income is and what your bills are. But it's a relatively small amount that's used for these discretionary purposes. This is not meant to accumulate large piles of money or anything, but we'll get to that. So if the spouse has a hobby, some sort of craft or model making, video games, anything like that, that's what this money is meant to be used for. Now, the money in this account should be capped at a particular amount, again, determined by the couple's budget, so that the amount of money doesn't build up forever into some sort of huge amount over time because one of them might be an extreme saver and just not want to spend it. If the account gets too large, then that money is not being put to work for the family, so that's not a good thing. So this small discretionary account needs to have a cap on it of some amount. It's the same for both of them, with the same amount of allowance going in for both of them. And they can spend it as they like for anything they like at any time without checking in with the other spouse. This helps alleviate that resentment of having to go to the other spouse constantly and asking for money and asking if it's okay if they spend something, because you're a working adult. You're contributing to the income of the family. You shouldn't have to ask for absolutely everything like that. Again, it makes you feel like a child, and that's not a good thing in a marriage. So we now have a yours, mine, and ours with an allowance account for each of them that they can access and do anything with anytime they like without having to ask anybody. But it is capped, so any large purchase that's beyond the cap of the account needs to be discussed jointly, whether that's a new car or a new computer, some expensive electronics. Heck, it could be as large as an expensive new iPhone or something else like that that's beyond the cap of the allowance account. Big spending like that needs to be discussed jointly anyway, so it shouldn't come out of an allowance account regardless. So that's the system in general, yours, mine, and ours, with a discretionary allowance to each spouse based on the budget that the family has. So give it a shot, or think about it at least, talk about it with your spouse. Give us some feedback on the comments below with what you think, if you use a system like this or if you have a better idea or a modification. Thanks for everything. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.